My name's Noah, and I'm 27 years old. For most of my life, I've been told I was the responsible one, which is code for we're going to dump every problem on you and expect silence in return. I'm the eldest of three, and since I turned 18, it felt like someone handed me a mop, a calculator, and a stack of overdue bills, then disappeared. My mom, Gloria, used to be warm, at least. That's what I tell myself when I look at childhood photos and try to piece together the gap between who she was and who she became. Somewhere along the line, she stopped being a mother and started being a critic with a ledger, counting every ounce of help I gave like it was an unpaid debt she never agreed to. It didn't happen all at once. It was a slow corrosion, like rust bleeding down a pipe. I moved back in after college because Dad had passed away unexpectedly, and the house, the one I grew up in, was on the edge of foreclosure. Mom cried for a month straight. I paid the mortgage. I didn't even question it. I just stepped in, like any decent son would. My younger brother, Ethan, was 21 and working part-time at a car wash he hated. My sister, Lila, had just started her nursing degree. Neither of them was in a place to help. So I did what I thought I was supposed to do. I worked 2 jobs, one full-time in IT support, one freelance fixing home networks on weekends, and funneled money into that house like it was a dying patient on life support. The thing is, when you're always the one showing up, people start assuming it's your job to show up. Eventually, they stop saying thank you. Then they stop asking. Then they start expecting. Mom's grief hardened into bitterness. She got meaner, blunter. She'd mutter things like, "This house used to be peaceful before you brought your stress in," or, "If I'd known I'd have to babysit a grown man, I would have just stopped at 2 kids." Ethan didn't say much. He mostly kept to himself, which I didn't blame him for. But he never defended me either. And Lila, when she came home for breaks, acted like I was some relic taking up too much space. I'd hear her whispering to Mom in the kitchen, something about me being too intense or always acting like a martyr. They thought I didn't hear? I heard everything. I tried to keep the peace. I paid the bills. I fixed the water heater. I cleaned up after my mom's endless trail of half-used teacups and Lila's discarded scrubs. I even covered Ethan's overdue car insurance twice, just so he wouldn't lose his ride to work. But something in me was unraveling, some tight cord I didn't even know had been pulled taut for years. Then came the night everything snapped. It was a Thursday. Nothing special. I got home around 8:30 after helping a client in the next town over who couldn't figure out why his Wi-Fi kept dropping. I hadn't eaten all day. When I walked into the kitchen, there were takeout boxes everywhere. Chinese food, my favorite, but nothing left. Lila and Ethan were on the couch watching something loud. My mom was in her room. I asked, gently, "Hey, did anyone save me anything?" Ethan didn't even look up. Lila shrugged. "We figured you'd eat out like always." I stood there, still holding my keys, my hands sticky with dust from a filthy modem I'd just reset for an old man who insisted his router was possessed. I looked at the empty boxes and felt that quiet, familiar shame settle in my chest like it always did, like I was asking too much just by existing. So I said, "I worked 12 hours today. Would have been nice to feel like I mattered enough for someone to ask." Mom must have heard me, because her door slammed open like a shotgun blast. She stood at the hallway entrance in a robe, hair half pinned up, eyes wild. "Oh, here we go," she snapped. The speech. The guilt trip. "You act like this family owes you something for being miserable all the time." I blinked. "I don't want anything. I just wanted dinner." She walked into the kitchen and opened a cabinet, slamming it shut again like punctuation. "You think this house runs on your little paycheck? You think you're some kind of hero? You're a burden, Noah. Always have been. We'd be better off without you." The room fell completely silent. Even the TV was still. Ethan and Lila didn't move. My ears rang. I didn't cry. I didn't scream back. I just looked at her. For the first time in my life, I saw her for what she really was, not the woman who raised me, but the woman who'd spent years chipping away at my soul because she hated her own reflection. She turned and stomped back to her room, slammed the door like a judge delivering a verdict, and the house felt colder than it had in years. That night, I packed. Quietly. Deliberately. I didn't slam drawers. I didn't make a scene. I didn't even take everything, just what I bought with my own money. My laptop, clothes, passport, birth certificate, and the folder with all the financial paperwork I'd been managing for the household. Bank accounts, mortgage statements, utility records. I loaded it all into my car while the house slept. Before I left, I walked into the living room one last time. The takeout boxes were still on the coffee table. A fortune cookie lay unopened, greasy and forgotten. I picked it up, cracked it open, and read the fortune. It said, "Sometimes, walking away is the bravest thing you can do." I put it in my pocket and closed the door behind me. 3 weeks went by. I moved into a small apartment closer to the city. It was quiet, clean, mine. I didn't tell anyone where I went. I changed my number. I rerouted my direct deposit. I even called the mortgage company and removed myself as co-signer. Legally, I wasn't required to keep paying. I had just been doing it out of guilt. Then, on a rainy Tuesday morning, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. It was Ethan. Why'd the mortgage payment bounce? No, hey. No, how are you? Just that. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed back. Guess the burden took the bills with them. I hit send. Then I blocked every number that suddenly remembered I existed. And that's when the real chaos started. It started with one voicemail from my mom, just her voice, tight and shaky, saying my name over and over like she was practicing how to sound concerned. Then more came in. My aunt called. So did my cousin Rachel, who hadn't spoken to me since she borrowed money for a business investment that turned out to be a 3-day music festival in Spain. The messages piled up on Signal, on WhatsApp, even an old Telegram account I hadn't used since college. All of them echoed the same sentiment, just in different tones. We didn't mean it. You're overreacting. Your family needs you. And my favorite, the one that twisted my stomach into something sharp and unfamiliar. You're punishing everyone just because you got your feelings hurt? That one came from Lila. I didn't reply. Not to any of them. Not even when Ethan left a voicemail at 2 a.m. that started out sounding angry and ended with him trying not to cry. I let them sit. I let them stew. And I sat in my quiet apartment with a cup of coffee I didn't have to make for anyone else and listened to the rain beat against the windows like applause for the silence. You'd think that would have been enough, a clean break. But when someone loses their safety net, they don't just fall. They flail. They scream. They scramble for whatever piece of rope they can reach. By the end of that week, I started getting calls from the bank. See, what no one in that house ever bothered to learn was how much I'd done behind the scenes. I wasn't just paying the bills. I had consolidated their debt. I'd refinanced the house in my name to lower the interest rate. I'd put utilities under my credit because theirs had been wrecked years ago. And when I left, I ended every thread I'd tied to keep that house from falling apart. The gas bill bounced first, then the water. Then the mortgage entered pre-foreclosure status. And that's when Mom showed up at my door. I didn't know she had my address. Turns out, she'd pulled it from a forwarded piece of mail that mistakenly got routed to the house. I heard the knock and instinctively checked through the peephole. There she was, umbrella in one hand, lips pursed like she was preparing to give a speech in a courtroom drama. I didn't open the door at first, just watched. She knocked again. When I finally did open it, I stood in the doorway. I didn't invite her in. She looked me up and down. You've lost weight. I said nothing. She huffed. This has gone on long enough. We're in trouble, Noah. I raised an eyebrow. We. Her face twitched. Fine. I'm in trouble. The house. Ethan. Lila. Everyone's scrambling. You don't say. She shifted her weight, her voice softening in the way it always did when she was about to say something she didn't mean. I said things I shouldn't have. I was grieving. I was scared. But you don't just abandon your family. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't feel guilt. I felt something else, something colder, quieter. I said, you don't get to call someone a burden and then be shocked when they stop carrying your load. Her eyes widened. I didn't mean it. You said it more than once. You meant it enough. She opened her mouth again, but I cut her off. I'm not coming back. I'm not fixing this. And I'm not your backup plan. She tried to step inside, but I didn't move. We're your family, she said, her voice finally cracking. And I was your son. Your actual, living, breathing son. And you treated me like an ATM with a pulse. That's when her composure cracked. The tears started. Real ones this time. She leaned against the doorframe like she couldn't stand upright anymore. Noah, please. It would have been so easy to cave. To let her in. To go back to playing the part I'd always played. The fixer. The forgiver. The one who always showed up, no matter how late, how tired, or how broken. But I didn't move. Instead, I said, you should go. Before the storm gets worse. She didn't argue. She just turned, umbrella snapping open, and walked into the downpour. I closed the door, locked it, and leaned back against it, letting the silence settle again. The room was warm. Safe. Mine. But I knew the fallout wasn't over. 2 days later, I got a letter from the bank. My name was still tied to one account, just one, and someone had tried to access it. There was an alert. A failed login attempt from an IP address tied to the family's home Wi-Fi. And then, hours after that, an email from a lawyer I didn't recognize. That was the moment I realized they weren't done trying to pull me back in. They were just getting started. The email was short. Too short. Mr. Lewis, I represent a party with an interest in resolving certain shared financial obligations tied to a prior co-signature. Please contact my office at your earliest convenience. I must have read it 5 times before the implications landed. This wasn't a courtesy message. This was a warning shot. They were escalating, and they were doing it through legal pressure. The account they were referring to, one of the last I hadn't yet closed, was an old joint credit line I'd opened to help Mom refinance the kitchen renovation 5 years ago. It was supposed to be temporary. I had meant to close it after 6 months, but back then, every time I brought it up, Mom would guilt me into leaving it open just in case something came up. And like a fool, I listened. I called the bank directly instead of replying to the lawyer. Turns out, someone had tried to max it out 3 days prior. The transaction had been flagged for fraud because the purchase, furniture, of all things, was being delivered to a different name. Lila's, apparently. Not even subtle. I asked the rep to shut it down permanently. She said I'd need to come into the branch to finalize the closure. Fine. I'd make the trip the next morning. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was scared. I was past fear. I was exhausted, bone-deep tired in a way that even sleep wouldn't fix. I laid there in the dark, staring at the ceiling fan as it hummed and turned, and thought about how long I'd been running this silent marathon. Fixing things, smoothing things over, paying for other people's mistakes, and smiling while I did it. They didn't want me. Not really. They just wanted the version of me that kept them afloat. And now that I was gone, they were drowning. I got to the bank as soon as it opened. Sat across from a woman named Celeste who wore chunky glasses and smelled like lavender lotion. She pulled up my file and shook her head. "You really did a lot for them," she said quietly, not unkindly. "More than most people would." I just nodded. There was nothing left to say. She walked me through the paperwork, and I signed every document she slid across the desk. "That's the last one," she said, clicking her pen shut. "You're free and clear." Free and clear. Funny how those words didn't feel triumphant. They felt hollow, like walking away from a house you built with your bare hands and watching someone else set it on fire. As I stepped out into the parking lot, my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. This time, I answered. It was Lila. Her voice was tight, frantic. "Noah, what are you doing? You're destroying us." I leaned against my car, letting the spring air wash over me. "You did that yourselves. You're seriously going to let the house fall apart? Mom's crying every night. Ethan can't pay anything. The electricity's about to be shut off." "I know. Then why aren't you doing anything?" I took a deep breath. "Because I already did everything. For years. While all of you stood around watching. You don't get to demand more just because you didn't notice the work when it was being done." She was quiet for a moment. Then her tone shifted, hard, cold. "You're unbelievable. You want us to suffer just so you can feel powerful. You're punishing us." "I'm protecting myself. There's a difference. You used to be better than this." "No," I said, voice low, calm. "I used to be easier to use." She hung up. I didn't even flinch. But later that day, the messages took a turn. Screenshots of angry posts started circulating in the family group chats. Ones I wasn't a part of anymore, but people sent to me anyway. Facebook rants from my mom about a son who turned his back on his own blood. Vague quotes about cutting ties with toxic family. As if she were the victim of some calculated betrayal. The best one came from Ethan, who posted a selfie of himself sitting in the dark with the caption, "Guess not everyone values family." I didn't reply. I didn't correct the narrative. Let them talk. But something in me shifted. That old urge to fix, to explain, to apologize flickered one last time. And then it died. Instead, I started gathering everything. Every receipt, every wire transfer, every loan document, utility bill, and text message that showed exactly who had been paying what and for how long. I wasn't planning anything specific, at least not yet, but part of me knew something was coming. And when it did, I needed to be ready. That Sunday, I got a call from Aunt Marianne, one of the only relatives who'd ever treated me with any real warmth. I let it go to voicemail. She left a long message. Said she'd just come from dinner at my mom's place. That the house was dark, cold. Everyone was whispering about selling it, maybe moving in with relatives. Then she said something that made my blood freeze. They're talking about filing a claim against you, Noah. Something about financial neglect. Your mom's been spinning the story. You should get ahead of it. Financial neglect. As if I had done something wrong. I stood there in my kitchen, gripping my phone, heart pounding not from fear, but from clarity. If they were going to weaponize my kindness against me, I needed to stop playing defense. Because I wasn't just going to survive this. I was going to end it. I didn't sleep that night, not out of worry, but out of a quiet, focused intensity that I hadn't felt in years. The kind of focus that creeps in when you realize you've been cornered too many times, and suddenly, for the first time, you're not looking for the exit. You're looking for the switch that floods the whole place with light. By morning, I had a plan. Not a plan for revenge. Not even a plan for vindication. Just truth. The full truth. Unfiltered. Documented. Delivered. Because if they were going to smear my name in family circles and try to paint me as a monster to anyone who'd listen, I wasn't going to sit quietly in the corner and let them burn down everything I'd built, especially not my reputation. So I started writing. Not a rage-filled message. Not a passive-aggressive status. A statement. A record. A digital receipt of everything I had done for that family. Over the course of 6 years, I included every bill I paid. Every emergency loan I made. Every holiday gift I bought on behalf of the whole family because Noah's better with money. I included screenshots of texts from my mom asking for just a little help to get through the month, and Venmo receipts of covering Ethan's car repairs, Lila's exam prep books, even the down payment on a trip my mom had insisted on taking to reclaim her joy. I pulled mortgage statements, tax records, and emails from the bank showing I'd refinanced the house under my name to keep them from losing it. I even included the time I paid off the last of Dad's hospital bills because Mom didn't want the collectors calling the house. Then I wrote the part that hurt the most, a brief but brutally honest reflection of the emotional abuse I'd endured under the roof I helped keep standing. The years of being called ungrateful, moody, just like your father, as if that was an insult. The backhanded comments. The guilt. The way they cheered when I succeeded, but only if it meant they could claim a piece of the reward. I attached every file, every photo, every statement, and uploaded it all into a single Google Drive folder titled, What Being the Burden Actually Looked Like. And then I wrote a single message. I posted it in the old family group chat I had muted months ago, the one they didn't realize I still had access to. It said, "You've been asking why I left, why I stopped paying, why I cut contact. You filled in the blanks with lies, guilt, and pity for yourselves. Here's the truth. No yelling, no insults, just facts. All of it is in the folder. Read it. Don't. I honestly don't care anymore. But from this moment forward, you don't get to rewrite the story. You don't get to play the victim. I was never the burden. I was the foundation. And I finally walked away before you crushed me beneath it. Then I left the chat for good. Within minutes, the notifications started flooding in. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree. Ethan tried calling. Lila sent 3 consecutive voice notes, each more frantic than the last. My mom texted a wall of messages, veering wildly from pleading to accusing, back to pleading again. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I forwarded the entire folder to Aunt Mary Ann, who'd always been the family's unofficial historian. The keeper of stories. The one with the biggest mouth, but also the biggest heart. She called me that evening. I picked up. "Noah," she said softly. I had no idea. I didn't say anything. She sighed. "They're in shock. I don't think they realized how much you were doing. I don't think they wanted to know," I said. It was easier to pretend I didn't mind. "Well, they know now." She paused. "I'm proud of you, sweetheart. I know that might not mean much right now, but I am." "Thanks," I whispered. There was a long silence. Then she added, "Don't be surprised if some of them try to apologize." "I'm not interested in apologies," I said. "I'm interested in peace." And that's exactly what I got. In the weeks that followed, the fallout was quiet but definitive. The house went up for sale not because I forced it, but because they couldn't afford to keep it without me. Ethan moved in with a friend. Lila took a leave of absence from her nursing program, probably to find part-time work. And Mom? She tried sending a handwritten letter. It arrived 3 weeks later. 6 pages. Mostly tears on paper. No real ownership. Just nostalgia for a version of me that never said no. I never wrote back. Instead, I kept building my own life. Slowly. Patiently. I started seeing a therapist. I joined a local coding mentorship group. I reconnected with a college friend who eventually became more than just a friend. Her name's Elise. She teaches high school biology and has the gentlest laugh I've ever heard. One night, while we were walking back from a late dinner, I told her the whole story. Not the polished version, not the bullet points, everything. She listened the whole way without interrupting. When I finished, she looked at me and said, "You know that wasn't normal, right? The way they treated you." "Yeah," I said, nodding. "I know that now." She took my hand and squeezed it. "I'm glad you left." "So am I." Because here's the truth. Sometimes, being the bigger person just means knowing when to walk away before you're buried under other people's expectations. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is stop showing up for a role you never auditioned for in the first place. And when you finally walk away, when you really walk away, it doesn't feel like anger. It feels like freedom.